Greetings and welcome. This is Bernard Drew of Liberty Management. And as much as we have enjoyed being with you, we are excited that this moment right now, we get to introduce you to a few more business owners here in Genesee County that have been doing a phenomenal job and are going to share with us some ideas, some creative perspectives, and some lessons learned that they've embraced to pivot in this season. And it's our hope that you're going to find the inspiration that you've been looking for, a few new ideas, and if nothing else, some cool folks whose businesses you can support and connect with. What I want to do today is to make sure that we give acknowledgement that events like this don't come easy. They come with a lot of forethought, a lot of planning, a lot of intentionality, and yes, a lot of investment. And so we want to acknowledge one of our main sponsors, which is the Freedom Center Church in Fenton. And so with services on Sundays at 9 a.m. and 11, with a Facebook page that's super active, and all kind of messages, words of encouragement that can be received online, I want to encourage you to continue to support the great work that's happening with the Freedom Center. And it's a beautiful process of seed, time, and harvest. It seems like the more they pour into the community, the more the community comes back around and pours right back in, and we want you to be a part of that. And so without further ado, I would love to take a moment right now and introduce to you two of our panelists today, or should I say two sets of panelists. We've got three individuals with us, and we're excited because we know that they have a message to share that's indicative of some transition and pivot they've made, and yet we're going to give some time and some space for them to be able to share with us some of the whole journey. Now, they can tell all of it, but to share not only the good, but maybe a little of the bad, and if necessary, a little ugly, so that we can truly embrace and appreciate the journey that they've had. And so I want to start first with Dr. Nicole Wax of Wax Orthodontics. And we're also going to have a chance to speak with Dan and Kelly of CGC Connecticut. And the opening question is just this broad and open. You know, the pandemic hit, COVID-19 brought a lot of restrictions, a lot of changes. Please introduce yourself, your organization, and tell us how you've managed to have to change in the midst of this season.
Well, thank you, Bernard. And I absolutely love the title of this series, Pivot. I mean, that's absolutely perfect for this time in this pandemic, but in business in general. Because if you want to continue to grow, you have to constantly be pivoting based on the needs of your customers, your patients, your team, you know, whatever's going on in the world. You have to be open enough and humble enough to kind of look at things and see what other people need, because that's what business is about. It's not what you need or you want. It's about what other people need and other people want. So COVID.
You hit us with a heavy nugget from the beginning, but go ahead.
I mean, COVID just brought that out for a lot of us, and it forced our business and many businesses that are still here, you know, 3, 4, 5 months after this all started, to change and, you know, change in a way that ultimately led to probably in a lot of cases growth. So when COVID first happened, you know, probably like a lot of us, there was a lot of different feelings and emotions that came over the course of several weeks or the few months we were stuck at home. It started with fear because we didn't know, and not knowing is, you know, scary for a lot of people. So, you know, for us or for me, I'm at home and I'm thinking, okay, what do I do with all my patients? How do I keep taking care of them even though I'm stuck at home? What do I do with all my team? Okay, what do they need from me? And I didn't know, I'd never done this before. I never had a chance to think about it. So that can be scary at first. So, you know, I took a few days and worked through that.
Okay.
And then said, all right, we're getting focused. We can't just sit here and be scared and you know, talk like that, you know, just about what we don't know. We got to really figure this out. So I Zoomed. Everyone discovered Zoom over this time, right? So that's something we learned, and that's been useful even after the fact. I Zoomed with my leaders, and luckily I had been working really hard over the last 5-6 years of my business developing my leadership team. Because with all our minds combined, we can do so much more than any one of us by ourselves. So I met with them and I said, okay, guys, let's brainstorm together. And one of the big brainstorming sessions was, what can we do now? We have the time. What can we do now? Let's take a step back from our business. We're kind of forced to do that right now, right? What can we do so that when we open back up, whenever that is, we are going to be ahead of the game and ready to go. All right. So, you know, one big thing was offering virtual services or telehealth, right? Which that was already in existence, but very minimal.
Okay.
But yet every one of us knows, like, how convenient is it to be able to reach out to your doctor and not have to go in, right? And so, you know, what we did is we figured out what that looks like. And luckily, I have an amazing leadership team that I've worked on for a long time so that they were able to help me work through this,
Okay.
even though we were stuck at home. So we came up with what that looks like in resources so that we could post it and get it out to our patients in our community, that we were offering these virtual services to our patients and new patients. And again, it's something we had thought about, but it was going to be on the bottom of the to-do list for a long time because there was nothing forcing us to innovate in that way. And other things kind of were, you know, always priority beforehand. But this was a really amazing opportunity, and we should look at it that way. That pushed our business forward because virtual was such a need. And we all learned how helpful it is, COVID or post-COVID, you know, telehealth and things like that now.
You've covered so many nuggets. You know, and I have to tell you, it's almost like watching someone who's an Olympic athlete. They'll do certain things just second nature that to us would be like, you just did what? How fast? Where? And yet, one of the things I hear is that you said you've been building your leadership team over time. Mm-hmm. And what I hear is that same kind of skillful preparation. And it sounds like that's paid you some major benefits. Tell us some more about how that investment in leadership in your people has been so strong in your journey thus far.
Well, I think that it's really important to know where you want to go. What are your goals in life, in business, personal, all of that, okay? Because that's what motivates me to grow other people. Because I know where we need to go and where I want to go, and we're going to all go together. And I can't do that myself. No one wants to do that themselves, you know? So, you know, I always have growth in mind. I always have innovation in mind, and I need a team that can help us achieve that. So, you know, it takes a lot of extra time and energy to grow individuals, but if you find the right people, it's an amazing thing. So, you know, for any business out there that wants to, you know, have that type of structure, I mean, set the goal, which is growth and leadership growth, right? And culture and team growth, okay? Set the goal and then come up with your strategy of how to achieve it. Well, the strategy for that is weekly meetings, monthly meetings, very thought out meetings where you guys are talking about problems and talking about solutions and you know, bringing other resources in. You know, we listen to podcasts together and we talk about it so that we can all grow as people, as business-minded people, as, you know, as leaders on the team.
That's major. And I'm glad you're speaking words of inspiration directly to those who are participating with us today, because what I just heard in there also is the fact that as an entrepreneur, sometimes there's this hustle, grind mindset that almost inherently implies, have you done all that you can do? Are you staying up all night and burning the midnight oil and this, that, and the other? There's a time and place for that, no doubt about it. And oftentimes it may set an example. But what I hear you describing is the importance of knowing what your goal is, planning so strategically what that goal is, and owning the reality that I can't, as much as I want to grind and hustle, I can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. And what I hear you saying is that you embrace that. And I'm speaking to some of our individuals who are attending with us. Some of you are going to have some goals that are so big, you can't do it alone. And what Dr. Wax is really showing you from example is the importance of building a team on purpose. I can appreciate what you said. You listen to podcasts together. So it's not just about one person. Again, I go to this athletic team. You got a track team that's running a relay. You don't want to just look at the person on the anchor leg and say it's all on you. Yeah. You do all the extra workouts and weightlifting, et cetera. The relay, the team performs better when everyone is in sync. And so I'm really taking a lot from that I think is helpful for those that are participating. But I got to say, I'm learning and relearning myself the importance of investing in that team.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. Now, I want to come back and what we're going to talk more about, because what you're laying the foundation for, which I happen to have observed and have seen and have heard from you, is one of the unique traits that really embodies the nature of your organization. You have multiple locations, and that is the emphasis on culture. And so I'm going to pause for a moment to get a piece of a picture, a snapshot from Dan and Kelly here. But I want to come back and hear some more about culture.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, Dan, Kelly, so tell me here, as it pertains to CGC Connecticut, first off, let us know some more about what your firm does. And then I would love to know, based on what you've been used to be doing, how has this pandemic caused you to make some different moves?
So Dan, Kelly Abel, CGC Connecticut, we do water treatment. We make the water a little bit better, right? So the city, the county, the state does all that they do for the water. They can take it so far. And we want them to do that. They protect us and keep us safe, right? They keep the water safe. We get to take it to another level. They get it to the front door and come into the house, but we can make it healthier when it's in the house, once it's in the house. So we're not trying to replace the city. We're just enhancing what they've done. And I love the baton because that's what they do. The city gets us to a sweet spot because where we live and where most people, we don't die from our water, right? We're not dying from our water. So they do a great job, phenomenal job, keeping bacteria and stuff out of the water and getting us healthy water to the house. We just take it to a level that helps clean it up just even a little bit further for the house and then for drinking water as well. So it's been, we love what we do. It's opened our eyes a lot when this thing hit. You said good, bad, and ugly, so I'll give you a little bit of the ugly. We actually let 25 people go at the beginning of this thing, which is probably the worst thing that we've ever had to do. And it was early on, so people were questioning, well, wait, this is early. This isn't really, yeah, it is early, but my heart was it, and my prayer time was also if you get to early enough, then you can get in the system faster. You can get into the system and get money coming in until we get through whatever it's going to look like, and then we can also, then you can come back. And we've hired the majority of those back and then some, almost a third more than where we started with. Wow. So God has just been blessing us like crazy. So it's been crazy what we're doing, what he's been doing. So it's been fun. It's been really fun. But I could sit here and listen quite a bit longer to what you're talking about, team, as well, because we do a lot of the similar things, is training our leaders. And we have a lot of young leaders, which is God has given us, but we're doing a lot of training. We're not, old like Pastor Jim is. I had to do that, by the way. But we do a lot of training, probably more than anything else. We do a lot of that training for the heart, because what we're trying to do is anybody can do water treatment. Anybody can do that, right? But what we're asked to do is, hey, especially in our environment, we want to go out there and love on people, because it's an honor for people to allow us to come to our family and say, hey, can you help me with your teeth? Can you help me with my water? Can you do that? And they have a lot of options that they don't have to come through us. So it's an honor that they come. So if we miss this and we're going into people's homes, we have an opportunity to influence people. And being influencers, we get to love on people in such a way that says, hey, I know I'm here for water, but how are you? How are you doing? So it makes things different. And when you get the right people on staff, and you get the right people to come alongside and join your family and be a part of your family, man, you can make a difference in a world that says, hey, you're dying out here, you just don't know it yet. Say, oh no, that's not actually true. We're not dying. We don't have to stick our heads in the sand and not grow. And what I feel like is that the people that have grown, the businesses that have grown, the people that are not running in abject fear are the ones that are saying, hey, I can't do this on my own. I can't do this on my own. I need a teammate. I have to do this with people to come alongside. And if we have this vision, a corporate vision, we can go love on people. And although we're doing water, it's much more than water. We're representing, and we get to go love on people. It's just simply our tool happens to be, or our vehicle happens to be water. Makes it easy.
And I would say, too, I know, Dr. Wax, that you guys had to close down. Well, we were considered an essential business, so we did not close down. So I think that also why Dan and his team had to get together early to figure out what this was going to look like, because we, like Dr. Wax said, we didn't know. We've never gone through this before. We didn't have this in our employee manual about a pandemic. So, so having that team of people, to sit with and talk to, what is this going to look like for us? So we weren't closed. So that was another thing, like how do we move forward in this, which led to the decision, I think, that was probably the hardest thing I ever saw him go through, because he loves people and he loves them well. And so those families were our responsibility, and I know that he took that on himself. But at the same time, he wanted to also do right by them by giving them the opportunity to get into the system early. So besides that, I think then looking at who we had left at the time showed us too, are we too big for our britches, or do we need to make some adjustments? And so I think even from that moment on, that plan started to go into work. So we even made changes within the office with employees. Maybe they were in one job position, and now it allowed us to see maybe they fit somewhere else even better. So those were some other things that just in those beginning days, what that looked like.
You know, there's a level of consistency that I'm hearing in both of your accounts of what's taking place. And as much as typically I would expect in an entrepreneurs conference, a business conference, you know, people are thinking dollars and cents. People are thinking profit margins. What's my profit and loss statement going to look like? And amazingly, I know that's an important factor. But what I'm hearing consistently is a passion for people. That it sounds like in both of your cases is a level of conviction that by taking care of people, somehow, by taking care of people, the other factors may work themselves out. And I hope that there's some that are listening and watching right now. Yes, dream big, have big, awesome goals, like huge goals. Dream big, let just great visions enlarge inside of yourself. And yet, again, I'm hearing such a consistent theme with whatever your dream is, know that it's not just about you. And I would love to hear some more, again, about culture, because I believe I'm hearing something. When you kept pointing, it's about this. That's a culture you're training. What I'm hearing, you know, you can train them in certain tasks of what to say, what to do, how to install this. But the emphasis I heard you mention in training wasn't about those tasks. It was about this. And I want to stay in that vein for a little bit. What can you tell us more about culture and its importance? And you've got multiple locations, right?
Yeah, we have two, and we're working on our third. And
right.
You know, in 6 years from when we started up, we've grown from 1 employee to 31 employees. Woo. So people, you know, are really important. But before I get into culture, which is definitely a topic I love to talk about, you know, Dan and Kelly, when you guys were talking. You know, you're talking about making decisions that it's the best decision you can make at that time. You don't know if it's the right decision. It's just the best right decision that you need to move forward with right now. And, you know, something I had heard a long time ago was sometimes you just have to take that next step, even though you might not be 100% sure about it, or maybe it's not 100% right. Ooh, I love this image or this flyer, or you know, I like it, but I don't love it. But you just got to get it out there, because you can make changes and continue to pivot at any point after that. But you're going to further your business, further the team, you know, if you just take that next step. And a lot of people hold themselves back from the fear of just taking that next step because they're just not sure if it's right. But guess what? You can pivot at any point, and that's the most important things in business is knowing when to pivot and just do it. So, you know, maybe that's something you can incorporate in your culture.
I think very much so. And I'm hearing part of what I heard you say, and again, maybe I got athletics on my brain right now. Again, it's almost like a muscle that needs to be exercised for the sport that business is. And part of what I'm hearing is that COVID has created an opportunity to exercise a muscle that, frankly, in times past may not have been the focal point, but now it's part of your workout regimen. And hopefully we can keep that as part of our workout regimen. How to stay nimble, not have to pursue perfection, but pursue progressive action.
Towards perfection.
Boom.
There you go. You know, but I love the athletic, you know, analogies, because you're only, you know, everyone's heard this. You're only as strong as your, you know, strong as your weakest link or
Sure.
or whatnot. But any athletic team, you know, the more training that each team member does and the stronger that each team member performs, overall, you're going to win more championships, you know. But I want to talk a little bit more about culture, because I told you I'm super passionate about this, so I'm so glad you asked. Because a lot of people don't really know what culture is. What is it?
That's fair.
Okay. So to me, culture is the energy of everyone around you. It's the energy that you feel when you walk in a business. It's the personalities of all the people that work there, right? So if you don't love the culture, or you don't love the energy that you feel in your business, then you have to understand what you do want, so that you can work on hiring the right people, training the right people, having the right conversations, because that doesn't always come natural to people. You probably have all amazing people on your team, but maybe they don't know, it doesn't come natural for them to walk into a home and say, how you doing today? Or tell me about your kids, right? Even though that is important to them. So you have to know what kind of conversations to have to bring that out of the people on your team. So, and that doesn't come overnight. I mean, this is its own goal to work on culture. I talk about goals a lot, because you have to first define your goal and then come up with your strategy to achieve it. So if you want an improved culture, improved energy on your team, then one, you've defined your goal right there. Okay. Two, you got to work on it, and that's your strategy. So, you're meeting with your team and you're having these conversations on a weekly or a monthly basis. You're doing team bonding activities to build trust on your team, because if you want people to do things a certain way in your business, you have to have trust, right? If you want them to work hard, I mean, you have to be giving them your heart and working on them for them to be working on your business and your customers and your patients. So
we do the training with the leadership, and then we have leadership that goes down through the teams that are the hands and feet that move everything along. Because if we do it and then they don't catch it, it's like, oh wait. On top of that, and we do that a lot. We do that a couple times a week. Book readings with our guys, with the hands and feet, the guys that go in to meet the customers. We do that a lot. And one of the things that we do on top of that is we do interviews wherever we get them from. A lot of them come from our home church here, right? Because they're already vetted for us a little bit. But if it's on Indeed or wherever we get them from, we do 4 or 5 interviews, starting with a phone interview, because one person, as you're talking about, can change the whole culture that's already been running down the street a little bit, right? One person can come in and change that, absolutely change that. So we interview the person we're interviewing, the significant other, children. We like them to come along and be a place. Let's go dinner. Let's go to the park, because it's all about that culture and getting that from.
That's like the last interview.
Yeah,
that's the first one.
That's
yes.
that. Yeah. Right.
Yes. So to get that from us to our leadership down, and as we go to the newest person that joined us, it's a big deal. They get to hear about it. We have a process that will train them the second that they walk in. They have almost a week of walking around, getting to meet all of our different directors and leaders and all that, and how we do. We're going to train you on some things, and mostly not even about water. So a lot of the same stuff.
That's an amazing tip, Bernard.
That was huge.
Because, a lot of people hire based on their educational background, right? Their degree or their experience. But you're saying you hire based on their heart and who they are.
I've got a cheesy reference right here, because you mentioned that. I think it had to been, I might have been in my early 20s, and I had the Zig Ziglar CD, and he was making reference to someone.
One of my favorites.
Come on.
All-time favorites.
Come on. And he was making reference to one of the larger hotel chains, and I remember him saying, we don't train people to be nice. We hire nice people. Yeah. That was his phrase. That was and that resonated, because it jumped out of me right now. And generally, you can train skills, but training heart, boy, that's a whole nother. That's why I need to come to Freedom Center and get connected with Pastor Jim,
Amen,
one of our sponsors here for this event, so that you can. And so that's a fun segue there. With that being said, I would love to hear some more, not only about culture, but in this journey, what would you say have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned, you as a business owner, you personally, when the staff is gone, the Zoom is off? What are some of the strongest lessons you've learned during this season that, out of your transparency, might help others that are participating grow as well?
Something I've learned during COVID, but it just kind of throughout business and having to work with so many different people, is, first of all, it's very easy to think about your perspective first. And that doesn't really work on a team, because usually it's not reality. It's just your own perspective. So I've really learned to, when you hear something, okay, let me think about this and let me try to hear it from your perspective. And a lot of times that helps me grow, and it helps the whole organization grow further than if I just said, okay, I hear you, but let me tell you my perspective. That's a big thing I've learned. I've also learned stress management because I'm a super passionate person. And with passion comes highs and lows really easy, right? You can't show that amongst a team, right? Because if you're showing your stress, I mean, you don't want everyone, if you have a team of 30 like we have and everyone's, like what's going on in a time of uncertainty, you're not really going to get anywhere. So, do what you have to do, take a breather. Like I said, I took a couple days at home before I had any answers to work through that fear and that stress. And then I composed myself, and then I was able to be the leader that my team needed. So that's a big lesson I learned during that time.
That's remarkable. And I think what you're doing again, I think there's just this consistent expectation that in order to be an entrepreneur, you got to have all the answers all the time. You have to always look like you have it together. And the reality of what you just described, that's how people break. That's how things get broken. Not being able to flex and having to learn the skill or apply the skill of how to retreat, step back, adjust. And I'm just say this, there's a level of vulnerability that comes when you're dealing with your staff, the way you just described, when you have to be that strong person and still take their feedback into consideration and still see your brilliant idea from their perspective. That's a vulnerable spot to be in. And it's not always easy, but it sounds like that's just a critical part of being a leader. So thanks for sharing that. For sure. I'm going to pass this to the Ables now.
You go for it.
So learning is, you thought it would have been there by now, right? But that's not how God seems to work with me and work with us, right? That to get in the middle of something that we've never done before, been a part of, that is kind of crazy. And then the pressure of not having it just on our family, on us, but all of these other people, right? And then what you're looking at is not just, the physicality of paying my bills or what's coming next, but the fear. How do you fight or combat fear? And when we're in it, right, just as much as everybody else. So it's pretty neat, the pivoting. But you have to be able to, I have to make some decisions. We got to go. We're going to try to get through it as fast as we can. But we're also we're gonna do it from not just from the angle of, we're not making any money, but how do we make it so not just we get to make money, right? But all of the people that we represent have to still make money as well. So how do we do that, right? And so the pivoting thing has been huge. To be able to, okay, or that wasn't a great decision, Dan. Let's try this. To be able to work in that environment where you've got to dance pretty fast. You got to be able to dance pretty well, because if you don't, you're affecting people's lives, right? It's also helped me to learn to be a better communicator.
Why are you looking at me?
In particular, in the different departments in the different areas, because we make a decision, others are like, okay, wait a minute, you've just affected all of us and our kids. Now, what can you maybe help us to understand? Can you, oh, dang it, I didn't explain that very well. I didn't get that out there. Here's my heart on this deal. Even though we have some pretty neat people that work for us, and we ask, just as we try to do for them, is, hey, base our relationship on our relationship, not just when Dan messes up, right? God willing, but to learn to be a better communicator, especially now when we've got 4 stores. So when you're trying to communicate, and one's in Florida, so to try to communicate a distance, even if it's just down the street, right? To try to be a good communicator with where we're going and why we're doing it. So the heart of that is hey, be careful of the fear, letting it run everything, right? Even at home, be careful of the fear thing. But here's where we're going, and here's why we're going, and what we're doing it, so people know what we're doing. So we've done quite a few. We're still doing it. Are the videos? Like, I'll just do it's I don't know what it's called. We have an IT guy, so he does all that for me.
That's
I don't even
great.
have to turn it on.
Team.
But I'll video, or a couple of the directors will just video, say, hey, here's where we are this week or this month. Here's what's going on. Here's how we've been doing. Don't worry, we got it. God's got us. God's got the ball. We're doing so, to try to encourage, to try to keep people, like, more than anything else, not just water, but hey, you don't have to live in this crazy ethos of fear.
Come
which changes everything.
Yeah.
Because we can't do what we do, be it teeth, be it water, whatever it is, if that's what we're running from. We can't do anything in that environment. So
yeah, morale was a big deal, and so I think watching that happen, like that was always important. Culture is always important to us, but even more so now you have a crisis, and so and again we've never dealt with that before. So how do we navigate through that? And so I think too, us being grounded in where we are, faith was a huge factor in that for us. Knowing that he was in the Word and praying, even though he doesn't have to explain that to people, you know, so that he could go into that meeting or in front of his staff and make an announcement that they know that enough about him that they don't have to question that. Like, it's not just a flippant decision. But then how do you encourage when you do have people who are in fear and maybe aren't on the same level of faith or even in that realm at all? So I think by hearing it from him, coming from the head down, was very important. And so I think that is something that we'll continue to do as we move forward, because he can't touch every person, you know, because we have directors in place for that, other management in place for that they get to spend time with him, but not everybody gets to spend time with him. And so the videos or just maybe even that prayer at the beginning of the day, whoever wants to participate, we don't make everybody participate, but they can come and do that. I think that was huge.
You know, I have to say I'm reminded of a passage of scripture that makes reference to fear has torment, and yet perfect love casts out all fear. There you got it. And what I'm hearing is, even in the midst of the unknown, like you said, I'm sure you have some very thorough employee manuals, but somehow this wasn't in the manual, wasn't in the business plan, and yet you've had to find ways to adjust. And again, the greatest thing I'm hearing is the adjustment for the care of people. And so, taking a page from our comments earlier, as much as I could appreciate as you're building leadership for 6-7 years to get them equipped, Olympic style, to get ready for the next pivot, part of what I hear also is that you have made an investment in your team from a standpoint of character, from a standpoint of values, that even when something unexpected happens, and if by chance in the pivot, making the best decision you can in the moment, you come to discover, whoops, that may have not been the best decision, that you've maintained enough integrity and enough values in the organization that an occasional misstep in an uncertain time frame isn't going to throw a relationship out the window. Yet you can look each other square in the eye, have good communication, and say, let's keep moving forward.
You guys mentioned a couple of things that are really important to any business. First, communication. And then also with any business, there's constant change. And if you're growing, you have to constantly be pivoting to the new needs of the business and the team. And you mentioned how everyone wants to hear from you, right? But as you get to a certain size, you can't touch everyone every single day. So, and that's, you've created a way that they still hear from you, and you're using video and you've learned new communication technique, right? But yet you still rely on your directors to also have this face-to-face and heart-to-heart with your team. So that's huge for any business, because, when you first start out, you can talk to everyone, because usually it's, one or two people. But as you grow, that can be challenging for yourself, because you love that part, right? I love that part. And sometimes you'll reach a point where you're torn and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not able to have those conversations and those deep relationships that I want, because my business is taking me in a different direction, maybe on a day-to-day business or a day-to-day basis. So that's a important part to learn how to pivot in a growing business, okay? And communication, okay? You asked a little bit ago, what have you learned, or what are some things you've learned during either COVID or after, or, before? And something that I've learned is when there is a communication barrier, it's my fault. How could I have said it differently? How could I have delivered the message differently? And that's a huge lesson as a business owner. So I've learned over the last several years how to communicate differently and more effectively for the people that I'm trying to communicate to, because it's not how I want to say it, it's how they need to hear it. I've learned that writing things down in a very clear way, which ends up being your manual anyway, right? Or policies and procedures, makes it very clear. You're going to have a conversation about it too. But if you just verbalize it per se, then it might be heard differently. It might be interpreted differently. So if you also write it down, then anyone can reference it back and no one can remember it differently. And again, you're working on your policies and procedures in that way. So that's just like a little tangible thing that any business owner can take away based on what you guys were talking about.
It's incredible. You're writing the vision, you're writing the strategy, you're making it plain so that later on down the road, somebody else can pick it up, read it, run with it, and go. And that's a timeless principle, to say the least. And I think I want to take a page out of your statement just now as we begin to, and it seems like it's gone so fast, to wrap up. I would love to hear any one tidbit of lesson you've learned or principle you would want for our guests, our attendees, to walk away with, to help them as they move forward. I'm mindful you've one thing I did hear, I got to pause and say this, if you can integrate it all. You said you went from scaling back employees to adding back employees and more. There's some lessons in there. And so I would love to wrap up with any last minute nuggets of wisdom or insight you'd like to provide. And if you can give us some insight there too, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so COVID forced everyone to stop and reevaluate their business. So I think it also taught a lot of people that might not have been doing this beforehand to stop and look at your business. So at least once a year, take a break and just back off and say, what could we be doing better? Because when you're in the grind of the day to day, it's harder to see the big picture, right? So, annually I'll look and say, okay, what are some things that are causing stress or not going smoothly in my business? And I'll just kind of take a step back and think about everything. And then I'll write those down, and then I'll try to come up with a solution for those so that next year can be better. I think that's an invaluable thing that COVID taught a lot of business owners, to take a step back, look at your business from a whole new perspective. So maybe you take a weekend. You're not going to take 3 months ever again away from your business, right? Or out of the grind of the business. But take a weekend, take a week maybe, and strategize for your clients, your patients, your team, your business.
And for yourself.
Personally too. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother. We could talk about the goods, the things we've learned on a personal and family perspective from COVID and having that time. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Great point. Seriously.
So for me, there's a lot of businesses that didn't make it, right? And not just restaurants, not just the serving industry, because everything's just been being decimated, right? And so, for whatever reason, God's allowed us to stick around, right? Two different, right? Because you shut the doors for a bit, right? And we didn't have to, right? So we've been blessed beyond measure because we're still around. There's a lot that aren't, right? And it makes me wonder, right? We have favor. I believe that, right? But it also makes me wonder about those businesses where they were with their people. It makes me wonder why. Right? And God forbid, we weren't as prepared as I would have liked, right? And so we've learned a ton to be better prepared. I guess I'm kind of ashamed that I'm prepared for my family for a calamity like this more than not, but I wasn't necessarily as tight as a ship as we could have been for our business. And that would have been, so we've done a lot of things to more prepare for that. So that would be, hey, you did it for family. And he's like, and actually, all of these people are your extended family. You should do better there. You should do better for them because that is your family. And that's an honor that they work there because they could do anything, right? They could be trading their life or exchanging their life to work for any other number of things, especially with the caliber of people that we have now. It's just, man, we've just been blessed beyond what I can imagine. And then still, even to fight that fear, to be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to run from the angle of fear. So we started a whole nother department. We started a whole nother that we've never done on our planet during this. And God has brought us some special people to help us to do a whole nother aspect of what we do in plumbing that says, hey, in a time that a lot of people are shutting their doors, in a time that a lot of people are still running in fear, God's like, that's not how I do life. We don't do life that way. And it sounds like that's how you don't do life either, right? I'm not running in fear. I have to keep going. I have to go. God's given us a vision. God told me 60 stores. He's given me 60 stores.
All right.
Again, I said 4. We have 4. So we got stuff to do, and we're opening stuff up. So there's a lot of stuff that God is, as you had mentioned earlier, sharpening. You got to tighten ship.
Your team is lucky to have you, because to be a business owner and a leader humble enough to say what you weren't good at and what you weren't doing for others, and that you care enough to make pivots to help other people, they're lucky to have you.
I'll second that note. And, I am impressed. I'm inspired. I'm challenged. Just hearing the level of depth of service. Again, notice there's been like no conversation. Though in certain circles, it's great to talk about what's the cash flow, what's the profit margin, etc. Everything I'm hearing is the evidence that you are all convinced that the success and even the meaning behind your respective businesses is in the people that you're able to serve, the caliber of service you're able to serve them with, the culture that they're able to come and be a part of, and how important creating a safe, healthy, meaningful environment for your staff and team may be. I just want to encourage those that are tuned in. Know that you have a team here. We want to continue to celebrate our sponsors, like Freedom Center Church, like the Eco Organization. You're not in this alone. And I think it's important as you hear these very well-accomplished business leaders that they mention how they've started one step to the next step. And that may be where you are, that it's important to have a great team with you and to value that team. What we want to do now is I want to extend to you my just most heartfelt thanks and ask if you want to one more time, just state your names, your business, and where your main location is so that people may support.
I'm Dr. Wax of Dr. Wax Orthodontics. We started in Linden. We have Highland and a third coming soon. And I would just say, if you have interest in what we're doing or you want to know about what we're doing, follow us on Facebook. It's more than just teeth. We do a lot of philanthropy work within the community, and that's a big part of what we do. So please follow us so you can help us help the community.
We're Dan and Kelly Abel, and we're with CGC Connecticut, and we do water treatment and plumbing, coming soon. I guess that's it.
60 stores.
Oh, Heartland is where, I couldn't remember what the other part of that was. So we're located in Heartland, is our main office, but we do have 4 other stores, and we even have a remote store way down in Jacksonville, Florida. But they are still family to us. So,
well, I hope you've been inspired with this kind of interaction today. As a business owner, to create a culture where people can feel great about growing and serving, working together. Frankly, I'm sure some of you are listening. You're probably saying to yourself, man, I would love to work for a location about like that. And so what we want to do, I want you to know that we're going to continue to share more and more segments of these videos over the course of the week. And what we invite you to do is to join us on Friday at 1 o'clock via Zoom, as we will be having the full extent of our experience with this Pivot Conference. And one of the things I'm happy to celebrate and announce is that we're going to be welcoming Sean Hart. Sean Hart, who is just a phenomenal burst of inspiration and I think thought-provoking motivation. He is a former Michigan State University football player who has harnessed a lot of that passion, that discipline, some good victories and some tough losses in a way that he now operates as a motivational speaker who speaks to universities, speaks to institutions, businesses, so many different organizations across the community, across the nation. He's going to be sharing with us some keys to help us build that heart, as what you were talking about. And our hope is that whatever your field is, you may do some things that none of us technically know how to do, but our hope is that you will have the mind to pivot and the heart to grow. Thanks for tuning in with us today, and we're looking forward to much more to come.